The Sega Saturn killed Sega. No question about it. It took them straight out of the console market. This was mostly due to a lack of any kind of good games. Hi everyone, I'm Fez Yep, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about how NiGHTS was one of the greatest Saturn games of all time, and a pretty mediocre Wii game. Most of the games that made the Sega Genesis so amazing were never brought over to the Sega Saturn at all. Not even Sonic the Hedgehog. Well, nothing important anyway. That doesn't mean that the Sega Saturn didn't have any good games of its own. They were just few and far between. Having a quality Sega Saturn game was like asking for a bad Donkey Kong game. It just doesn't happen. Shipping with a game like Virtua Fighter was a good move, as it became one of the most popular games in the system, though at least having a single good Sonic game at the start would have helped the Saturn turn things around. I mean, it didn't even have to be 3D! Just a new 2D game could have helped the Saturn. While the Sega Saturn had a lot of games that turned out to be flops, if you search hard enough through the garbage pile, you can eventually find this. Wait, no, this one! This garbage pile is too deep! I mean, there isn't a single ounce of decency here! Holy shit, it's an ounce of decency! NiGHTS Into Dreams was by far one of the best-selling exclusives the Sega Saturn ever had, though its sales were probably helped out by the added controller. Still though, NiGHTS was one of the most well-designed games for the system. It truly allowed the player to experience reimagined flight. Developed by Sonic Team and released in July 1996, they envisioned a game that has replayability rather than just moving from stage to stage like many other games at the time. The design choices in the game are a bit strange. While the design for NiGHTS is an incredible one, and the backgrounds are lively and colorful, especially for the industry and for Sega at the time, this game definitely gives off more of a Nintendo feeling to it than a Sega one. Still though, with an incredible character design and some pretty unique gameplay, the game has to be amazing. Is there really no hope left for the Saturn? Oh, thank God. NiGHTS is a game with two gameplay modes. The game starts by asking if you'd like to play as Elliot or Claris. These are two kids who definitely do not know how to make decent burgers. These two kids are asleep, and you have to make sure they don't come by the alarm egg, or else it'll wake them up, giving you a game over. From this nightmare? I mean, you literally get mugged in every level. Playing as Elliot and Claris is just the worst, with slow movements, a camera that never moves, and a background that is constantly rendering. I mean, it makes the game look terrible. This all changes for the better once Elliot or Claris combine with NiGHTS. The game then becomes fast-paced and fun. Anyone could lose themselves in the mechanics here, especially Sonic the Hedgehog fans. You fly around collecting 20 blue chips to release the 4 NiGHTS that were stolen from you at the beginning of every level. Something I wish was actually explained to me by the game, rather than me having to look up. After collecting each of the stolen NiGHTS, NiGHTS has to go fight a boss battle, and each of the boss battles are well designed, with each one having a unique way to beat them, which is way more than I can say for many of the boss battles in the Sonic series. Each of these 7 levels and boss fights come with amazing soundtracks, colorful scenery, and interesting gameplay mechanics. From Mystic Forest bouncing you off trees to Soft Museum being really soft. It's soft! The game just feels like a breeze. The feeling of flying is incredible, what with acrobatics and tight turns in the air. I mean, it's no wonder this game received heavy praise. It really felt like a natural successor to Sonic, in terms of speed and becoming faster and getting a higher score in each level. So why is this game so niche? I mean, it's a damn jester! Part of the reason for this is that while it was the best game on the Sega Saturn, that basically makes it the cleanest garbage in the dumpster. If the Sega Saturn had better games and more reason for consumers to buy a Sega Saturn just like the Genesis, more people would have played it. But with so many buying Sony's PlayStation, not many people got the chance to ever play NiGHTS. It didn't help much that developer Yuji Naka had absolutely no desire to create a sequel. This didn't matter much though, since we got 2 more releases after this. Christmas NiGHTS Into Dreams is a fantastic step up from the original game. Released later that year to increase Saturn sales, Christmas Nights brought beautiful Christmas assets and tons of bonuses that should have just been in the game from the start, like a gallery of characters and a promo for Nights merchandise. It's really incredible to see this. I mean, it's basically a time capsule more than 20 years later. Those weren't the only bonuses though. While playing as Elliot and Claris is always the worst way to play the game, no question about it, Christmas Nights does something incredible. It allows you to play as Sonic the Hedgehog while on the ground. Through opening presents after beating Dream Mode, and after watching the Hallmark Christmas movie they included, you could unlock Sonic by matching his 2 tiles. Just watch out for that bastard Riala. The one appearance he makes in Christmas Nights was enough to strangle my hope of ever getting Sonic. I mean, the number of times he made me replay the level over and over again. If it wasn't for Sonic being the prize at the end, I would have just called it quits right there. If we ignore how much I wanted to beat Riala. With Sonic's faster movement speed and much higher jumps, Sonic is now the optimal way to play through levels that weren't even designed for him. It makes you wonder who was held at gunpoint while making Elliot and Claire so boring. Still though, even as Sonic, the camera makes it abysmal to play. While Sonic is the optimal way to play on the ground, if you're playing Knights anyway, just go play as Knights. Makes you wonder. I mean, Sonic doesn't play too bad here. And with the engine for Knights already existing, which would have made flying around as Super Sonic a lot more fun, why did Sega wait until the Dreamcast to make a decent 3D Sonic game, when it could have saved their Saturn and their company? Because in that universe, they didn't get Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games. How lucky we are. Yet Sega failing as a console developer led to Sega bringing their franchises to other consoles, something die-hard Sega fans never thought they'd see, but couldn't fight. It was inevitable though. While Sega definitely had love for their franchises, they just absolutely fumbled when it came to being a console developer by 2000. Tons of franchises were brought to other systems, Jet Grind Radio Future being brought to Xbox, and Sonic jumping from platform to platform. Even Knights had been seen in many other games on other consoles, from being playable in Sonic Riders or Sega Superstars Tennis, to being in cameos in games like Sonic Adventure. But with enough love for a seemingly dying franchise, fans finally got what they've been asking for. Sega finally gave those 17 die-hard Knights fans out there in 2007 a sequel. Knights Journey of Dreams was released in 2007 and was heavily targeted towards kids. With the motion controls of the Wii giving Knights an interesting way to fly, Sega thought this was a sure win for the franchise and for the company. Journey of Dreams was well received. With mostly 7 out of 10s, the game must be a faithful sequel to the original. But kill it! Despite the game being well received, I'm sorry, it's just not the original game. From a small hub world forcing me to play more boring and ugly characters, to flying babies, this game really rubbed me the wrong way. At least the game isn't always threatening me with that slow ground gameplay though. Instead, it's required here. The levels where you have to play as Will or Helen are just awful. They're too long and drawn out, and Helen's level is especially abysmal. It made me hate mirrors! Overall, I'd say that Helen's missions are better than Will's. I mean, they're prettier and have more going on. But still though, why play this when the original game still exists? Knights himself, or itself, feels fine here, though it somehow feels worse than the original game. The controls don't feel as tight, and the stages are way too expansive to feel tightly knit. And the colorful backgrounds from the original are lost to a soulless background that I'd expect from Pets Horses too, especially in Will's levels. The amazing soundtrack of the original is also lost here. While this one is serviceable, I never found myself being blown away by it. I mean, listen to this from the original game. Getting the Idea is now a race against these birds to get a key, and the blue chips are for score only now. I thought I liked this race system at first, but the more I played it, the more I realized it kept me from feeling free. This game makes you feel like you're trapped in this race, and trying to get faster to get a higher score is not nearly as fun as the original. Journey of Dreams added a lot of story and a lot more depth, and whether you see this as a good thing or a bad thing is up to you. but that's sort of its only contribution to the franchise. It added virtually nothing in the way of gameplay mechanics. Hell, it took the existing mechanics from the first game and made them slower! The ending is very cinematic in comparison to the original, with both kids teaming up to help NiGHTS fight Wiseman. The boss fight isn't much fun, and doesn't have the amazing music its predecessor had. And after Riala already made me hate his guts in Christmas Nights, he had the audacity to reappear in Journey of Dreams. All the more reason to just play the original, where he's much more likable. I'm not saying Journey of Dreams is a bad game. I'm just saying, if you made me choose between playing this or playing the dinosaur game, it's not looking too good for Sonic Team. NiGHTS Into Dreams was eventually remastered for Xbox, PlayStation Network, and Steam in 2012. And it comes with Christmas Nights. With better visuals and a working leaderboard system, this is now the ideal way to play NiGHTS, though playing as Sonic was removed.
Oh, good. The one thing the ground gameplay ever had going for it. At least Will is dead and buried.
I am hopeful that NiGHTS gets a solid third game in the franchise, preferably without flying babies though. But Sega, unfortunately, has not expressed any interest in continuing the franchise in years. But hey, while we may never get another NiGHTS game as good as the first one, well, at least we have Sonic and Mario at the Winter Olympic Games in this universe. Am I right, guys? Guys? Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making this video. If you liked the video, leave it a like. If you didn't like the video, go ahead and leave it a dislike. Nobody sees them anyway. Thanks again. Hope to see you in the next video.